Hey guys, welcome back to another Bums Blitz video. I'm your host, The Bum. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do that. Click the little red button down below. While you're there, give me a thumbs up before I screw you over your lineup like I did last week. I'm just kidding. I screwed myself up more than anybody, but hey, I guess I deserve it. All right, so let's get into this week's sit and starts. I'm ready to go. Let's have a better week. I am taping this again, because I deleted it the first time somehow, and I don't know how, but for some reason, didn't record, and now I have to redo it again. So here's a long-ass recap of what I just did for about 12 or 15 minutes. All right, let's start again. Week 3, pretty awful week for me. Hopefully it wasn't so bad for you. I hope you had Marvin Jones Jr. in your lineup. Hopefully you had KC in your lineup. Hopefully you didn't have anybody on the Steelers in your lineup. Hopefully you didn't have Kelvin Benjamin on your team. Oh man, so many good things. Anyways, let's get right into it. This week we have the Packers and the Eagles out on bye, so you have a few players that you're missing, obviously, some key players. Hopefully I give you a few guys that you can fill in. I'm going to go through this list a little bit quicker, I hope, because there are a few more players than usual. All right, let's start with Joe Flacco. I know it's hard to play Joe Flacco, but he has a great matchup against the Oakland Raiders. They are awful against wide receivers. They're awful against quarterbacks. That defense is a defense that we thought was going to take a step forward, and it looks like they have just sat in their crap, and it's time to change them again. But you know, Flacco, I think, could have a good day. The Raiders are going across country, which is always something to look for when you're looking into these matchups. I think that they're going to have a tough day ahead of them, and Flacco will take advantage of that. I will talk about another player or two from their team later on in this video, but definitely think that Flacco is a nice replacement for a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Wentz. So let's get right back into the next person. Tevor Siemian. Tevor Siemian is also a player that you could pick up off the waiver wire right now, probably. He has a good matchup this week against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has given up a lot of points to quarterbacks this year, and I do believe that Siemian will be able to do some of the things that he hasn't been able to do against, you know, a few of the teams that he's already played. He did have a decent game against Carolina. And I think that this Tampa Bay defense does not compare at all to Tampa Bay, so he should have a decent time going up against them. It's a nice little play. I don't believe that, you know, he's someone you're going to keep throughout the year, and I don't think that he's going to have a stellar week. I do think that he's going to get you double-digit points if that's something you need. Maybe you have a strong team, but you just need someone to fill in and make sure you don't get like a crappy score. I think that's definitely Tevor Siemian this week. Player that I would like to watch out for this week, it's Big Ben, man. He's going up against KC. They are home, so they don't have that Kansas City factor going against them. But, you know, KC is a tough defense. They've played really well. And Big Ben, you know, he struggles sometimes. And sometimes if you look at his stats, you know, he's one of those guys that really goes up or he goes down. And, you know, you could see a lot of stats where he's gotten 11 points, 12 points, 14 points, and then 35 points, and you know, 28 points, and then it's back down to 10 points. You know, so he's one of those kind of guys, kind of streaky, and, you know, he is obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the league. For that reason, for the streakiness, I didn't draft him at all this year. But, you know, I definitely think that this game will be one of those lull games, maybe 10, 15, you know, definitely under 15 points, 12 points. I wouldn't sit him for, you know, a Tevor Siemian. That's not something that appeals to me at all. But, you know, if you do have a guy like, you know, Stafford, he may be out there. You know, guys like that, guys that you picked later on as backups but have been playing pretty well, you know, those are the kind of guys that I would think that maybe you look at. So make sure you don't get too cute. Big Ben, you still drafted him high. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He can definitely bounce back from last week, but it's going to be tough. And I definitely think you need to look at your other options, all right? Next player I want to talk about, wide receiver Mike Wallace. Now, he's a guy that I've talked about a lot in these videos, especially early on. I told you once they sign him, it's very interesting. I thought he could take over that Torrey Smith role, and he's a better version of Torrey Smith, honestly. And with the matchup against the Raiders, I don't see them stopping him from scoring this week. So I definitely see a touchdown in Mike Wallace's future. He did not have a great week last week, but I definitely think he bounces back and he gets you a few points. So if you need somebody to fill in, for Matthews or Jordy, I like Wallace, and he's definitely somebody that you could go out and get, or if you haven't already gotten, he's somebody that you were finding on the waiver wires earlier. So hopefully you have them, and you can stash them and put them into your lineup. So the next player, I got like a hair on my face or something. Everything's going wrong for me today. Jeez. The next players I want to talk about, actually, you got twofer. Crowder and Djax. They have a great matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland gives up double-digit points to wide receivers a lot. They even give to multiple wide receivers. They give up double-digit points. I think they've done it in 2 of the 3 games this year so far, and in the one game they didn't do it, it was like 7 points for the other wide receiver. So it's a really nice matchup. Crowder gets a lot of volume, so I think there's going to be a ton of volume in that game, especially because of the 2 defenses that are playing. I think there's going to be a ton of offense going on, and the volume helps Crowder a lot. But then you also have the big play ability of Djax, and I definitely think that he gets one of those long balls in this game. So watch out for those 2. Definitely fill them in if it's like a deeper league or probably even Fanduel type stuff. Definitely take a look at them for your lineups. They'll be pretty cheap, actually. So yeah, let's move on. The next players I want to talk about, actually, I don't want you to put in your Fanduel lineups, and that is Sterling Sharpe and ODB. You're playing ODB because you have to play ODB. Unless you honestly have 3 or 2 or 3 other wide receivers that are like number 1 caliber wide receivers, it's not impossible, but I would definitely look at ODB to be sitting on your bench. Now, I have a team that looks like Fitzgerald, Macklin, Demarius, and Kelvin Benjamin, and I think that's an actual lineup. I may have Mike Evans instead of Demarius. Not sure, but that's an actual lineup. Now, that lineup, I have, like, if I had ODB in there somewhere, I'd actually have some options to think about sitting ODB, and I would think about it. So in a case like that, possibly. Now, Sterling Sharpe, Shepard, he is a guy that is like a wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2. He's definitely somebody that you need to think about sitting this week. You saw what they did to Kelvin Benjamin. He got a big 0. He only got 1 target, and I'm talking about Minnesota. They're tough against the wide receivers. Definitely think that this is one of those matchups where it's going to be a rough day. It's in Minnesota. That dome sounds like it's pretty loud from what they said over the telecast the last time they played there. So who knows? I definitely think that Shepard needs to sit this week, and ODB, you need to take a look at your options for sure. Definitely don't play them in Fanduel. All right, next, I am also worried about Hearns and Robinson over in Jacksonville. Surprisingly, it's something we probably haven't even really thought about, but Indy is really good against the wide receivers. They haven't let up a touchdown to a wide receiver all year so far, and they just got back Vontae Davis. So, it's going to be a tough matchup for them. I think it kind of goes along with the thinking of ODB as far as Robinson goes, but and then it's like mirror images, really. Hearns, sit. Robinson, look at your options, and I do think you could sit Robinson easier than you could sit ODB. Just this week, though, I do think that Robinson's going to be good the whole year. He's a great player. He hasn't been putting up the crazy amount of points that you want out of your first or second rounder, but I do think he makes a comeback soon. All right, let's hit up the running backs. Melvin Gordon is a guy that I need in every lineup, in everything that I do, because he's going up against the worst run defense in the league, the New Orleans Saints, giving up 33 points per game to running backs. That's, as a team, 33 points. So it's not just one running back. But Melvin has been playing great. He, it seems like the work he's done with AP has really helped him. He's getting the ball. He's the only guy in that backfield right now. Dexter McCluster isn't really going to be that much of a factor. No, he's going to be far less of a factor than Woodhead was. So it's definitely Gordon's backfield. He's got a great matchup. I love it this week. So definitely play him if you have him. Hopefully you do. And I'll even be covering a couple players that I may play him over that you may have in your lineup. So let's talk about that. Anyways, and I skipped one player that should be in the wide receiver section, but he's also kind of a runner and he's kind of a quarterback. That's Pryor, obviously in Cleveland. He has a great matchup against Washington. They're one of the worst teams against the rush. And when you consider the rush and then the pass as well, and also wide receiver points, all those points, different ways he could get points, I definitely think that he's a good wide receiver too this week. I would definitely look at him. You might have him. You might have Sterling Sharpe or Hearns. And you may want to sit one of those guys. So I definitely would take a look at that. All right, let's get back into the running backs. Next, we're going to be talking about all the running backs in Minnesota. Sit them, don't play them. The Giants are actually the best team stopping the rush, and they're not good. Asiata is reliant on touchdowns, and McKinnon just doesn't get any touchdowns because Asiata gets all the chances. So I definitely would sit those guys. Don't play them. If you have other options, Riddick, even in like a Darrell Washington, I really like him. Maybe might make a video about him at some point, but I think that he is a home run type of player. So if you have him on the waiver wire, if he's there on the waiver wire, go pick him up because he's one of those guys that either is going to do nothing, which is fine, or he's a big boom. He could be like an Arian Foster couple years ago where you picked him up and then all of a sudden the last 5 weeks he was crazy. Definitely think that you need to get a move on that. All right, so next player is Christine Michael. I said it right. Wow, that's good. I would take a careful approach to him, sort of like with ODB and with Robinson. He has a bad matchup this week. He's going to be the guy. I just think that maybe you should look at a guy like Melvin Gordon or CJ Anderson. Hyde has a bad matchup, but he's one of those guys too that I think they're going to be like right there next to each other this week. So definitely take a look at those options. Make the best decision you can, and just a guy I would like you to watch out for. All right, and lastly, the last player that I want to talk about. I'm sweating over here, sorry, but I told you, it's the second time I've done this. Zach Miller. Zach Miller had a great week this week, and a lot of people were like, sell high on him real quick, and because that's the best game he's going to have. I do agree that is probably going to be a top game that he had with the 2 touchdowns and I think like 78 yards. But this week is also a great matchup. He faces Detroit. Detroit is the worst at stopping the tight end. And, I think it continues this week because, whoever's going to be under center, they're going to need a target. I don't know if Cutler's going to play yet. I haven't heard. And if that news is already out there, I'm sorry. I've just been a little bit busy. But, they'll get him the ball. It's a great matchup for him. He's one of the best receivers he's at least the healthiest receiver on the team. So he could have a really nice week, especially, a guy that you would have probably gotten off of free agency. So take a look at him, play him. I think he has another good week this week, and then you want to sell high on him later because I don't know if he gets any better than this, especially in that offense. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions at all about what you've seen in this video, please feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any suggestions about what I'm doing on this channel so far, please leave a comment down below. If you don't want to do any of that, you don't have to, because you could tweet me at BumsBlitz. My website is bumsblitz.com, and my Facebook is Bumsblitz Fantasy Football. I make it real easy for you. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do that. Just click the little red button down below, and while you're there, click the thumbs up. Give the video a little love because it deserves it. Anyways, until next time, I will see you guys later.